It is so good to have you here. For those of you online, thank you so much for being here. My name is Julie, and I'm so glad you're here. For this morning, I have a question. Anybody ever have a time or a season or a moment where you go, yeah, we're just gonna tuck that one back here. We're not gonna let anybody know about that one because that maybe wasn't my finest moment. Maybe that moment where you messed up or you said something or you were just so full of shame or you were so full of sadness or so full of something that you thought, oh, I'm just gonna tuck this one back here and keep it under wraps, keep it under my hat because I don't need anybody to know about this mess. I can relate. I can relate to that. If you've spent any sort of time with me, maybe you've never spent any time with me, but if you have spent any time with me, you know that part of my story is that I was an angry mom. I was an angry mom when my kids were little. Woo! Boy, I could go from about 0 to 100 in about that much time. And I knew that in myself, and I saw it in myself, and I did not like that in myself whatsoever. And I kind of had a moment with the Lord going, I don't want this to be my story. I don't want this to be me anymore. Please change that in me. Please, God. Please change that in me. And he spoke up and he said, we're gonna do some changing in that, but I might need you to go public with that. And I'm like, nope, no. So here's what happens. Shortly after this happened, I found myself at the church that I was going to, some women's thing where they were talking about, wrestling with your sin, wrestling with your struggle, wrestling with your suffering, all of those things. And it was good. It was such a good message. It was so good. But then whoever was the speaker, I don't even remember who it was, got up and said, we've got a bunch of cardboard things over here. We've got a bunch of pieces of cardboard, and I want you, whatever that struggle is that you're going through, I want you to write that down. And we're gonna have cardboard confessions. What? I'm sorry, what? Because you all know when you're sitting there in your quiet time and you're listening to the speaker, it's like relating. Love it, so good. I'll go work on that with Jesus in my closet. Good. I ain't going public with this, no. And so I'm thinking, okay, what can I write down on my piece of cardboard that I'm struggling with? I only make spaghetti for dinner. I don't have any variation in my diet. I need to work out more. What are some things that would be so safe for me to go with? Because what they wanted you to do is take these pieces of cardboard, and there's a line, no joke. You had a line, you were gonna go up and you're gonna go, this is what I'm struggling with. You're gonna go public with it. I'm like, oh, let's just keep it safe. And no big deal. But you know how that spirit in you just starts beating and you can feel that heartbeat? And you're like, oh man, Lord, really? So I wrote it out. Angry mom. And I took that piece of cardboard and I stood behind the girl and it came my turn and I walked up there and I held it up for the first time. And I wasn't just this obscure person who'd never showed up at church before. No, my husband was on staff. I was super involved in women's ministry. And I had 4 kids and we were about the loudest thing anywhere we went. Everybody knew who Julie was. There was no getting away from this one. And there I was in all my glory, angry mom in front of a room full of women. And what am I supposed to do with that? Because we live in a culture that views weakness as bad. And not only is it bad, but you certainly do not go public with it whatsoever. You keep that baby tucked far, far away. Because that's just better. Just keep it quiet. Keep your stuff to yourself. Work it out. Go get with Jesus and just go work it out. But I wonder 2 things this morning. 1, I wonder if God doesn't want to meet you in the middle of that. And 2, what if that mess can go on to help the next person? And so we're wrapping up this series today called Face to Face, and I have loved it. To hear stories about people in the Bible who have had just an interaction, a face-to-face with Jesus. We've talked about Peter, James, and John, who just went on a hike with Jesus thinking it was just gonna be an everyday hike up a mountain. No, they watched the transfiguration happen. Whoa. And then we heard about Elijah in a cave and how God just met him there. And then we heard about Isaiah who went in, had this vision and saw the glory of God come down. And so when Joel came to me and said, hey, would you want to be a part of this teaching, part of this message series, I'm like, oh, let's talk about a woman that met up with Jesus and had a face-to-face with him. And here's the crazy thing. We don't even know her name. We don't even know her name. But we're going to find out how Jesus called her as we look into this story. And so if you have a Bible, if you have your phone app, great. We're also going to have it all up on the screens for us this morning. But we are going to be turning to the book of Mark. Side note, if you're looking for a book of the Bible to read that's got some really great stories about Jesus, go to Mark. It's so good. Okay, we're going to be in Mark chapter 5 this morning. And the story actually picks up in verse 25, but we're going to back up just a couple verses because I want to go ahead and set the tone, set the scene for us in Mark chapter 5. And so it's talking about Jesus is so famous. Everybody knows who he is and everybody wants to be with him. Everybody wants a piece of him. Everybody wants him to come to be with him. And so he is in just mass hysteria everywhere he goes. And that's what's happened. Jesus has crossed over on a sea and he has entered into a town and he has come to the dock of a bay and everybody knows it. And so everybody is like, whoom, to him. And so we're going to pick up in Mark chapter 5, verse 21. And it says this: when Jesus had crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders, a leader there, just one of the church leaders there, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, and he pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." And so Jesus went with him. And then the next verse goes on to say, a large crowd followed and pressed around him. We don't have a lot of crowds because of the pandemic. A lot of us haven't been in crowds. This is about the biggest crowd that some of us have been in, and some of us are still a little uncomfortable with it. But think about that time where you were in a crowd. I think about when the Broncos won the Super Bowl, you guys. Remember when they were good? We went down to the parade for them. Oh my goodness. And there were so many people. Anybody go to Civic Center Park for the reception or for the big thing afterwards? It kind of weirded me out. There were so many people. That's the scene right here. A large crowd followed and pressed in around him. Everybody was pressed in, and there were so many people. So many people. And so the story of this woman picks up in verse 25. And a woman was there. I love that phrase. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. Ladies, 12 years. She was subject to bleeding. 12 years, y'all. Come on. 12 days, 12 months, 12 years. This woman standing there in the crowd that was pressing in, she had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. Verse 26, she'd suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet, instead of getting better, she got worse. She got worse. Because here's if she was standing there in the crowd, here's what would have been true about her in those times. If she had been bleeding for 12 years, she would have been completely ostracized and on the same level as a leper. On the same level as a leper in that community. Nobody would have wanted to be near her, and she would have not been permitted to be anywhere. She wouldn't have been able to go to church. She wouldn't have been able to be with people. She would have suffered a lot. She would have lost her community. She would have lost her dignity, her friends, any relationships, marriage, nothing. She would have had nothing. And plus, it says that she had spent all she had. So not only did she not have community or anything, she'd spent it all for healing. She gave everything she had for 12 years. Think about what you were doing 12 years ago. And then just kind of back into that going, that's the time period that she had been suffering the physical toll. And then just the physical toll, think of the iron counts of losing blood. Just the physical toll that took on her as she stood there in the crowd. It's a long time. Verse 27, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought this, if I can just touch his clothes, I will be healed. And so she did. And verse 29 says, immediately her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. She's in the crowd of people pressing in. She heard about Jesus. Somehow she has to make her way to this crowd. And somehow she sees him. You know how when you're watching for somebody in a crowd, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's somebody that you know, and you're like looking and you catch an eye and you keep watching. And don't you know that she stood there and she watched and she timed it out to figure out how can I get through this crowd so that I can time it out, so that I can get at the right place at the right time and I can reach out and I can just touch him and be as obscure as possible. And she was healed. She was healed and she stood there for a moment and she thought, it's done. I'm actually healed. Like she felt it in her. She felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. Verse 30, at once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. What? And he turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? Oh man, there's so many things happening right here. The crowd's going, Jairus is there. Come on, Jesus, let's go. Everybody's in a rush. Let's move. And this woman is like, hold on. I want to be obscure. I am insignificant. I do not need any attention right now. Are you joking? And at once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him and he turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? Verse 31, the disciples say, you see the people crowding around you, right? Against you. His disciples answered, and yet you can ask, who touched me? I picture the disciples being like Jesus' Secret Service. Them kind of going, okay, Jairus, check. On the move, check. We know where we're going. We know where he lives. He's a synagogue leader. Okay, we're in motion. Jesus is going. Let's go. And then all of a sudden, Jesus just comes to a complete stop because they don't know. They don't know anything about this woman. They don't know her story. They don't know anything. But Jesus did. And Jesus felt power go out of him and he stopped. The whole thing shut down in that moment. And he says, who touched me? What in the world? And the disciples are like, you know there's a bunch of people here. How can you ask who touched me? It's not that Jesus didn't know. Jesus knew exactly what was happening, and he was about to do something on everyone's behalf. Verse 32, but Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. I just picture him there with his eyes scanning the crowd, looking down, looking up, scanning faces to try to identify who it was. Because Jesus wanted to have a face-to-face with this woman. Jesus wanted to have a face-to-face with this woman. Because here's the truth, she could have bailed. She could have gone, oh, somebody's looking for me, I'm out. But here's what verse 33 says. It says, then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet and trembling with fear, and I love this, told him the whole truth. Told him the whole truth. She went public and she risked everything again. She risked everything, like literally, like risked her life doing this because she could have been taken out and stoned. She was so unclean, and for her to reach out and touch a rabbi, to touch a teacher who was cleaned, made him unclean in their law, in the way that it was viewed in that time. That was wrong. She actually could have died by coming forward and doing that. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet. And don't you know, she was scared out of her mind, trembling with fear, and told him the whole thing. And she probably just laid there and just told him the whole thing about how I was on the outside and I saw you coming, and I just thought maybe I could if I could reach out and touch you, then maybe you could heal me. And you did. And you did. And don't you know, she just paused for a second and that beat going, now what's going to happen to me? And in verse 34, Jesus says to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. Again, just picture the scene. Jesus has locked eyes. Jesus is having a face-to-face with this woman right there. I picture his laugh lines. I picture his eyes, the softness, the compassion that he did, that he turned to her and looked at her and said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Because that's what Jesus does. He can only look with compassion. And don't we just want to be seen? You think about your littles when they were little. Mommy, watch. Daddy, watch. Watch, watch, watch. Look, watch, look, watch. Yes, I'm watching. Yes, I get it. I get it. I don't think we change as we get to be adults. I think our filter gets better. Please, somebody see me. Please, somebody see me in the middle of my pain. Please, somebody see me in the middle of my hurt. Please, somebody see that. But to do that, to keep waving your hands, it's just, well, you're just needy and you're just, my goodness, get a grip. We so want to be seen in our lives, especially by God. I love the day after Joel and I got married. We were all together as a family. His folks were out. Everybody was out from Indiana, and we were back at the house the morning before we were getting ready to hop on a plane to go out. And we walked out to the car. Joel and I walked out to the car, and Joel's dad came up to me before we left. Came up to me and he hugged me. And he said, welcome to the family, daughter. And for whatever reason, I just melted into him because my father had passed away 6 years prior. And nobody on this earth had called me daughter for 6 years. And to hear him call me daughter, there was just something about that. Because there's something about our daughters. There's something about our daughters that we love them and we want to be seen by them. And Jesus does this in verse 34, and he says to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. And he brings her in out of her suffering. Let me ask you this morning, has your suffering led you to Jesus? Has your suffering led you to Jesus? Because when I was looking through this passage and when I kept reading it over, because you read it different times, you read it different ways as you're getting ready to teach it. The verse that stuck out to me, strangely enough, was verse 27, and it says, when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. That comma right there, there's something about that comma that just caught my eye going, she had a choice in that moment. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him. She chose to go to him. She heard about Jesus, and she knew she had to get to him. She heard about Jesus. She had to recognize her utter need for him, and she had to consider the risks, and she had to go public twice. Not only did she have to choose to come up with the crowd and have people probably mock her and know her that you're the woman that's unclean, get out of here. She had to go public with that. And not only that, Jesus is like looking for her now, and twice she has to go up and go public with this thing. But she knew, she heard about Jesus, and she made a choice to go to him. And we hear a story like this, and we hear this phrase, a woman with the issue of blood. And maybe that's not any of us in this room this morning. It probably isn't. But maybe it's a woman with an issue of anger. It's a woman with an issue of addiction. It's a man with an issue of jealousy. A man with an issue of a heartbreak, a loss, a pain, a financial hardship. A woman with an issue of fear. A woman with an issue of betrayal, abandonment. A man with an issue of loneliness and uncertainty about your future. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Let me ask you this. What if our suffering is the very thing that draws us to Jesus? What if our present circumstances are the exact thing that ushers in the healing and redemption and compassion and love of Jesus? Because I believe this. She didn't see her suffering as an obstacle to Jesus. Her suffering was the very thing that compelled her towards him. She didn't see her suffering as an obstacle to Jesus. Her suffering was the very thing that compelled her to Jesus, because I think sometimes we see suffering as a wall, and Jesus invites us to use it as a bridge to him. We see our suffering as a lot of things. Boy, I must be suffering because I made the wrong choice. I must be suffering because someone else made the wrong choice. I must be suffering because I screwed up. I made the wrong choice because God's punishing me. I am suffering because fill in the blank. What do we fill that up with? I'm going through this pain in my life because what if Jesus is using that pain and that suffering in your life as a bridge to him? Because there is something supernatural that happens when our faith meets up with his faithfulness. There's something supernatural that I can't even explain. How do you explain that verse, that Jesus felt something go out of him? How do you explain that? I can't. I'm not God. I don't even understand that. But somehow our faith, when it reaches out and connects with his faithfulness, there's something supernatural that happens. And so, okay, great, Julie. Okay, so I'm just supposed to expect God to show up in my life. Who am I? I'm nobody. I literally, I'm nobody. I got nothing. I got no platform. I don't have much. Am I supposed to show up and expect God to see me? I love this verse, Psalm 5:3. Psalm 5:3, it says this: in the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and I wait. What's that word? Expectantly. In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before you and I wait expectantly. And that's not like a toe, like I'm expecting you to show up. You know, it's not what we do with our kids or our adult kids going, I'm gonna need you to do this. And you got the neck, you got the whole thing. I'm expecting. No, that's not what this verse means at all. And another version says, I wait with great anticipation. In the morning, Lord, I'm gonna lay it out before you with great anticipation of what you might do for me, how you might meet me there in the middle of it all. How might that change the way that we think about having a face-to-face with the Lord? Because I think sometimes you can get in a series like this and you can go, wow, that's so cool. They saw Jesus transfigured, wow. Like the train of his robe filled the temple with glory. Like, wow, I'm living my Tuesday at my desk. How about a face-to-face, God? Are you seeing anything? Are you seeing what's happening in my life? And I think Jesus would show up if he walked in that back room. Holy cow, first of all, we'd just fall on our face. Second of all, I think he would go, I'm so available to you. And I see you, my daughter and my son. I see you. And your faith is gonna make you well. Come to me. Come to me in the middle of your pain and allow that to be a bridge to me. Stop holding up that wall. Because I think sometimes, I'll just fix it up. Let me fix it up before I go to God. Let me fix it up. Fix it. And you say, no, use it as a bridge. Just come to me. Let's figure it out together. Let's do this. I'm going to have the band come back up, Jordan and Aaron and Jared. Come on back up, and we're just going to go into a time of worship, because I don't think, and I could be wrong, I'm not going to poll all of us. I don't think many of us tune in online or come to a church service post-pandemic because we just need to check something off on our to-do list. I gotta believe that I'm with you. I show up to church on Sunday morning, I want Jesus. I want to have a face-to-face with him. I do not want to leave out of here empty. I want to leave out of here knowing I have just encountered the God of the universe, because I need him. I need him. And So when I think back on that moment, I think it's sometimes easy to go, well, Julie, it's easy for you to talk about being an angry mom because for crying out loud, you've been doing it for over a decade. I mean, I've had this whole talk. I've spoke about it in front of moms groups. I've gone into different places around the country. I've developed a whole stinking event called the Madness of Motherhood. But there was a moment where there was like, no way, God, am I going public with this? No way. It's too embarrassing. There's no way. I can't do that. And I had to answer the question, am I willing to go to Jesus with my pain and allow him to heal me of that? I gotta tell you, when I went up and I showed up that sign that said angry mom, oh my gosh, I was so scared. I feel like I get nervous even thinking about that because it's so exposing. But I will tell you what, I had so many women come up to me after that and go, you have no idea how you just named what I'm walking through. What if your mess is your message? What if God wants to meet you in the middle of your mess, do that work that you need having done, and you then use that as your message that draws others to him? I cannot begin to tell you how many women, how many moms have come up to me through the years and said, your words have brought healing. Well, they're not my words. It's the healing power of Jesus in my life. I will drive around and go, God, I cannot believe what you did in my life. I cannot believe what you did in my life. But there was a moment where I could have said, heck no, I'm just gonna tell people that I only make spaghetti for dinner and I don't work out enough. I could have gone safe. But I think God rewards you when you risk it for him. When you say, I'm not holding back, I'm not gonna spend this one and only life saying, I'm gonna keep it back. I'm gonna keep it back. I'm gonna actually hide it. I think what you keep in the dark, the enemy can use to accuse you and to shame you and to just call you nothing. That woman risked everything and she brought it out into the light. And I'm standing up on a stage in 2021 talking about her story that happened 2,000 years ago because she risked it all. What if we said that? What if you went to Jesus in the middle of your pain for the next few minutes as we worship? What if you decided to go public with it? Oh, what if you decided to tell somebody about what you're struggling with? I still do that. One of my dear friends, Lisa's here. I still tell her the stuff that I'm struggling with because it doesn't go away, does it? Even though I stand on stage and I have an amazing redemption story, I still struggle with stuff and I got to talk to people about it. What if you're going public with it brought even more people to Jesus? What if your mess became your message? Would you stand with me? What if this morning you decided, instead of going, I got plans for lunch and I'm good, I got enough. No, what if you took the next few minutes and you spoke it back to him and you said, you can have it. You can have it all this morning. And what if you decide, I'm gonna go public? Maybe it's baptism, maybe it's going, I'm gonna tell somebody that I'm gonna be a follower of Jesus, no holding back, no turning back. Maybe you need somebody to pray with this morning. Maybe you need to be in motion. Maybe you need to go to somebody and pray with them. Joel's gonna be over here. Julie and Ron are gonna be over here. Maybe you just need to pray with somebody this morning because you need to get it out. You need to go public with something, whatever that means for you. Maybe you just need somebody to come alongside of you and pray with you. What if you didn't let shame and fear hold you back any longer? What if you decide, I don't want to live in shame, I don't want to live in fear anymore? Not anymore. Not anymore. And it starts today. We're going to close out with this passage in Ephesians that I love. I pray it over myself. I pray it over my family. I'm going to pray it over us this morning as we go into this last time of worship. And it's Ephesians chapter 1, verses 18 through 21, and just receive this as I speak it out to us this morning. I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. That power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly realm, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion, and every name that is invoked, not only in this present age, but also in the one to come. Jesus, would you have your way in us? Oh, not because we need shame or guilt or some sort of sideways conviction, but God, because you look out in the crowd and you say, who touched me? And your eyes are filled with compassion, and you look at each of us and you say, daughter, and you say, son. Your faith has healed you. Speak to us, Jesus. In your name we pray.